Hey, it's Jordan. I am delighted to be joined by Susan Winstead. And I had put out a call based on some reporting I'm doing on the ground. I put out a call for actual living, breathing, working people for interviews because we're getting a lot of the same narrative that we get from the media that the economy is back, that the economy is strong. I'll read President Biden here put out a tweet. He said this morning, we learned that new unemployment claims are now at a level not seen since 1969. America's historic economic recovery is strong. Our Americans are getting back to work, he says. Well, I go around the country and I don't know who the economy is strong for, but for actual working people, they are being strong armed, I would say. So you reached out to me and have quite a story yourself. Tell people where you're from, how long have you lived there, and what is it you're dealing with right now? Because you are, if something doesn't change, facing potential homelessness.
I am homeless after April. I've already received my notice because the housing market has gone up about 40%. And the rental market is practically non-existent unless you can pay over $2,000 a month.
Right.
So as far as the job situation goes, that's rather hilarious too. What I see is there are jobs down at the very bottom level where, once again, this is North Carolina. Guess what our minimum wage is? $7.99.
Oh boy.
But other than that, for professionals, there are just very few jobs unless, like, this is Chapel Hill. And I'm sorry, I should have introduced that. I'm not in Chapel Hill, but I'm right outside. Unless you are a young professional where the job market is pretty good.
Right. And what was your, because you've lived in a place for a couple of years, what did the rent used to be and what has the landlord jacked it up to?
Well, I lived here 10 years and I did have a really good rate because, I just circumstances, but it wasn't that great. It was $1,200 a month. Now, almost anything that you see is 1,000 plus.
You said 2,000 plus?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen 22s now for like 2-bedroom apartments.
Mm-hmm. And could you talk about what is generally the cause of the increase? Are they gentrifying the neighborhood? Are Wall Street types coming in and buying up properties? Or what are they saying is the justification for raising rates? You're talking by 800, 900 bucks.
Well, it's really the crazy housing market because so much of it got bought up already. You are familiar with the big concerns that came in and, bought up a lot of land and a lot of housing. Now it turns out anything that's sold generally has competing bids because everybody's in the market now bidding it up because they all assume that once they come in and make a few changes, it'll be $1 million.
Right.
That's a pretty hard housing market to get a decent apartment or a house done.
And for you personally, it's been a struggle because, you are you're older, you have Social Security, but Social Security is not going to cover a $800 rent increase. And you also, unfortunately, have lost several family members recently. So you don't exactly have anywhere to go.
I don't really have much of a support system anymore. The worst thing that you can think about it is that there are jobs, but when people who are older go after them, they're very, very nice to you all the way through when it goes to HR, and then all of a sudden you don't hear anything again. And there's a tremendous amount of discrimination against the elderly. And trust me, you can be the elderly if you're 40 or 50. So if you're really elderly, you're kind of dead in the market, even though you might have a great resume. I worked in aerospace engineering for over 20 years, and I had my own company for another 20. And, it was pretty good there in spurts. But essentially, essentially everything is kind of gone away now. So this great economy that we're hearing about all the time, I think has got to be really designated to nodes of the economy, the young, the extremely well qualified with recent degrees, and people who are connected. There are a lot of jobs. You mentioned Wall Street, right? But if you take a look at almost anybody there, you'll find out they all have connections.
Right. And also, I mean, you've been working most of your life. So that expect somebody like 65 years and up to now come back for, 8, 9, 10-hour day. That's a lot to ask.
Well, it's kind of odd because I have been working all my life, but it's just kind of, as they say, decreased over time to a stop. And it's very, very difficult to get jobs now, but it looks like the market is not going to stop. It's going to continue at more and more, high cost. And what do people do who can't get a good job? You can't do it on Social Security.
And, as much as you're willing to talk about, I hate to get personal, but for you, I mean, you've had a really tough last year or two. Can you kind of talk about the losses you've suffered and why, that has now made losing your home even more challenging?
Well, I lost my daughter last year, and then my mother passed away in September. My father has been dead for some time, and I have a brother who came down with cancer last year and a sister who came down with cancer. So essentially, there's no family there anymore.
And so sorry about your daughter and all these other losses. And obviously, we were talking off camera, potentially people you could stay with, they have their own issues and their own family members they're taking care of. So obviously, you don't want to be an imposition to them.
Well, you really can't be, because if you were up against the Medicare, and I shouldn't even say Medicare, but the hospital system today, you've got your hands full. It's hard for you to take on somebody else's problems.
Right. Absolutely. And can you kind of talk about North Carolina Republican legislature, Democratic governor? I don't think the Republicans are doing much because they're taking money from these real estate developers, but the Democrats are also taking money from these real estate developers. What are the politicians doing about this? Because whether it's for older people or younger people, I mean, who the hell can just like out of their pillow, could find another $500 to $1,000 a month?
Exactly. And the thing is that my rent increase went up, believe it or not, $700 to $800 a month. That's amazing to me.
What are the politicians doing, if anything?
Well, that's the interesting thing. We have a Republican General Assembly that came in stealthily with gerrymandered districts. You probably read all about it. We lost all of our really good Democrats, and now we just pretty much have Republicans all over. Although we did elect a Democratic governor that tries to keep it in somehow under a roar. Roy Cooper, he's been great.
So is the Democratic governor proposing anything to keep? Go ahead.
Well, he's been trying to keep the cuts that the Republicans have been doing to all the programs under control.
Mm-hmm. And what about in terms of housing? Is he pushing for any type of rent control, any type of rental relief?
This is North Carolina. We have nothing. We don't have any programs that you would think would benefit the actually medium income to poor. But what's really funny about it, hilarious, is they're getting ready to do another tax cut for the wealthy. Just thought I'd put that in.
Of course. And what does it say to you? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say they say it's going to stimulate the economy.
Yeah, they've been saying that for 40 years.
Crazy.
What does it say to you that you have President Biden, the Democrats, kind of pushing this, that the economy is coming back? that he said this is historic economic recovery, citing low unemployment. But when you look, whether it's North Carolina, LA, Washington, D.C., New York City, Chicago, Miami, Tampa, Orlando, yeah. I mean, people literally, the only thing historic is the skyrocketing rent. I mean, you're talking 40, 50, in some cases 60%. So what does it say to you when you are, I mean, I know you've been packing and things like that. You don't even know where you're going to go. What does it say to you that the Democratic Party and the media are pushing that the economy is great, everything's dandy?
Well, I hate to say it, North Carolina did not go for Joe Biden for a reason. They didn't like the chat. And for people like me, I'm a very left-wing Democrat. I don't like it either. It sounds crazy to me, like you're not thinking clearly about who your voters are and what they are thinking from what you're saying.
Right. And kind of they're just taking surface level numbers like the unemployment number or the stock market, but they don't seem to realize that that doesn't matter if you are an older person on a fixed income or middle-aged younger people living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, you can't. Most Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. We're talking about rent going up $800 to $1,000
a month. A month, not a year.
And
yeah, it's crazy.
And maybe you don't have the answers, but what are you going to do? I mean, you're an older woman. You have till when? The end of April to leave your place?
Yeah, I'm considering suicide, but don't tell anyone because then 1 million people will be calling me.
Well, this is going out. This interview is going out. So. Well, please don't do that. If there's people that can help you.
I know that they can't help because they can't find me a house here.
No, but in all
I'm laughing, but it's black laughter, right? I mean, you realize there's really nothing that people in my situation can do.
Right.
You can't remake the housing market.
And are you, in all seriousness, have you gotten to that dark place where you've had to consider potentially suicide because of this?
Only every day. And then I try to jolly myself out of it. After all, I have till the end of April.
Right. And, let me ask you, because people say, well, why don't you just move somewhere cheaper? Well, you've been looking. Are there opportunities for cheaper?
Every place I look, the housing market has done exactly the same thing. I've looked in small towns in South Carolina. I've looked in Virginia. In Maryland, where I used to live, it's exactly the same situation, but nobody's talking about it yet. I mean, you do see a few articles. I mean, you can see a housing craziness article maybe once every couple of weeks, but it's everywhere right now. People should be reporting on this. And Jordan, you're wonderful. You're just wonderful to do this. People need to know.
And I usually don't, I usually wouldn't ask a fine woman like you how old you are, but I think it's important in this story. If you don't mind, how old are you?
I'm not going to tell.
Okay. But
I'm terrified. If I tell, someone will come and beat me up and take anything I have because, I'm not able to defend myself.
Well, safe to say you're a senior citizen. And the reason I bring this up is
it's true.
We're supposed to live, American dream. You work hard, you could have a retirement, you could spend time with your grandkids, have a little dignity. Well, we're really living in an economic Hunger Games because
we really are. It's a huge economic decline that nobody is seriously reporting on yet. And by the way, I have an MBA in case anybody wants to hire me. I'd love to come over and do your taxes or your economic stuff or whatever. But the main thing is that nobody's really reporting on this. And it's been happening. The decline has been happening for, years.
Why do you think that is? I mean, the media nationally and locally Most journalists are doing fairly well themselves, and most of these local and national media outlets are owned by corporations. So what's the role of the media here?
Well, the point is that most of the people in the media are so overpaid, they don't really see it. It's like passing by a bad wreck story. They don't want to really look too closely, but it's definitely a wreck. And if you were truthful, it's a wreck every other half mile.
Before we wrap, tell people, because I'm sure there's a lot of people watching that might be in a similar situation or afraid they're going to be in this situation. What is the main thing you want people to know, since you're saying this isn't being talked about enough?
Well, something has to happen. We have to start reporting on what our actual conditions are for all the people, not just the people who've been skating through on easy money. Let's face it, that's one of the reasons why the stock market is roaring like it is. It's not that the products and whatever out there, but there's an awful lot of easy money coming to people who already have money, not like people like me. Right. And that's where they put it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Listen, I'm not in your situation, but I have had depression, and I honestly recently have been suffering with depression. In my life, I have had periods where I felt suicidal. It's tough because it feels like it's never going to get better, but I really hope.
Well, Jordan, you should call me. I'll make you feel better about your situation.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't want you to do anything. If that happens, you have my number. You call me, and we can't lose good people like you. And also, when we post this video, if you want to give contact information or anything like that, so people could reach out to you if they'd like to help, we'll try to help with that too. Thank you, Susan. I really appreciate it, telling your story, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much. And you're doing a smashing job.
Thank you.